This is Gadget Stop 321, and in today's video I'm going to be taking a look at how I deal with partially used notebooks. Now, I've been using fountain pens for taking notes for a couple of years now, but just prior to getting into fountain pens, I picked up a Moleskine notebook. Now, I had big intentions for this. I was going to use this for any note-taking pertaining to school, and I started out. Let's see. Now I've got some pages used prior to this, but I was using it for recording testing data, and I used it for recording notes from videos or books that I read pertaining to teaching, notes about different teaching techniques. And I started out, I was going to use solely, I think it was my TWSBI Precision Pencil. And I found that writing long pages of notes, my hand was getting fatigued. I have always gripped a pencil really hard. And so I switched over to a G2, and that gave me a little bit of relief. Writing was more pleasant. And in a Moleskine, a G2 works pretty good. You don't have any bleed through. The notes look nice, and I like the way the notes looked using a pen. And so I would take notes for a while and then get out of the habit and take a few more notes. And I wasn't really using my notebook entirely the way I had originally intended, and it didn't look as pretty as it did back in the beginning. It was getting sloppier, and after a while I fell out of using it. And then instead of it just sitting around not being used, I started using it as kind of like scrap paper, as a template for trying out different things. I started learning about bullet journaling and things like that, and so I was testing out different templates, and I got back into using it for notes, and I've used it for just scrap paper, working out different problems. And I wasn't real crazy about the way this looked, and I thought, okay, now I've learned how I want to use a notebook. I'll try something else. And so I tried the Filofax notebook, and one of the things I liked about this that really caught my eye was that the pages are removable and repositionable, and I thought, well, when I start a notebook doing one thing and then I decide I want to use that notebook for something else, I can just move my notes to the back of the notebook, and I'll still have my notes in case I ever need to go back and use them, but it's like I have a brand new notebook. The only problem with the Filofax notebooks are Filofax paper is just not great for fountain pens. For things like gel pens, they work great. Pencils, they're okay. But for fountain pens, I've experienced more bleed through than I am comfortable with. And so I really had gotten into using fountain pens quite a bit. In fact, I love fountain pens because I am such a tight gripper, and fountain pens have really helped me loosen up my grip while I'm writing because they require such little effort to write on the page. So, that aside, I kind of got away from the Filofax notebook. I still use it off and on from time to time, but I'm just not crazy about the bleed through. If they could come out with a notebook with better paper, oh, that would be my perfect notebook, because I like how slim this is. I like that you can reposition the pages. After that, I picked up a Filofax, or not a Filofax, but the Staples brand ARC notebook, and their paper is thicker, smoother, more fountain pen resistant, and I started using it for taking notes, and then I decided I got a new job in a new school, and so I was going to use it as a planner, and that worked pretty good until, I discovered that in order for me to use a planner, there has to be alarms and alerts, or I will miss things. So I got about part of the way through the year using this as a planner, and then I started using it as a journal for school. I would record things. Since I was at a new school, there were new things I was learning about their system, things I wanted to remember for the next year, and so I used it more as a journal, and that worked out great. The only problem I had was there would be several weeks scattered throughout the year that I didn't record anything, and so at the end of the year I went through and pulled out those unused pages, threw them away, and I've just kept the record of that year, all the pages that I've written on, and that was a tremendous help. So I thought, well, if I don't use every week, maybe a bullet journal would work better for me. And so last year, this past school year, before school started, I picked up one of the official bullet journals, and let's see, I had so much fun, or I enjoyed setting up my planner the way I ideally wanted the planner. I like all the months at the beginning, and so prior to school starting, I set up all my months, recorded all my important school dates that were already on the school calendar, and I went through, and like I had done in my Moleskine, I went through and made some notes from books and videos that I had read and collected, and that was all looking nice and neat that I could refer back to as the school year went on. And I planned to use this instead of as a planner. I was going to use it as a school journal, like I had ended up doing with the ARC notebook. And well, I was going to use it as a journal and a to-do list. And so the very first day of school, prior to the kids getting there, I had a list of things I needed to do. I made that list, and then I didn't make another to-do list until October. I never did use it as a journal. I never recorded the first entry, and I was like, oh, what a flop. Okay. But as the year went on, I started using it like I did my Moleskine. I used it as scratch paper and taking odds and ends notes. And then a few weeks ago, I started taking notes on a book that my principal had suggested to me, and I found that using my fountain pen and reading that book and taking the notes, I was really enjoying it. I was still using it as scratch paper. And then a group of teachers started a little professional development study group where we were taking a course, and I was taking notes on that, and it really added to the enjoyment of learning and taking this course, recording my notes, using my fountain pens in here. And I look through my journal, and even though it's not every individual page is not pretty and nice and neat, just the sum total of all the pages, your notebook doesn't have to be perfect. You can get enjoyment just out of writing on the page. And I like the motto, the Field Notes motto. I'm not writing it down to remember it later. I'm writing it down to remember it now. Writing stuff down just helps you solidify your thoughts, and I've just found it to be very helpful these last few weeks. And so I guess what I've learned through all of this is don't wait until you have something perfect, fully thought out to record in your notebook. Use your notebook to flesh out your ideas. And